that just reminds me of one of my passengers who was quadriplegic. So they had no arms and
And no
no legs.
legs.
And so they were traveling with a travel companion. So of course, like I was extra nice. They were like up front. And it turned out he was the worst passenger ever because he would like curse at everybody. And he, like, when the pilots came out, he was like, bartender. I called the pilot, bartender, I want 2 more Jacks. And then just like did like racist stuff, sexist stuff, like really loud. And I even told my captain, like, can we get somebody like that arrested? Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Like,
that I don't know. I would feel so bad if they get arrested, but at the same time they're really being belligerent. So yeah, we ended up not doing anything about it, but it's almost kind of scarred me for life. I'm like, oh, the people that you're gonna be so nice to, sometimes they're the ones that are gonna turn around and abuse it, you know?
especially with people in that position, because like you could, even if they were just nitpicky about the little things, especially being like a quadriplegic
Mm,
or like dealing with certain things.
mm,
I have a fuse a mile long, especially if you have something else going on in your life. I can
mm,
understand, like, hey, you are angry at the world because you
mhm,
got dealt a shit hand, and I could put up with that for so long. But I've met a lot of people that have gone through awful things,
mm.
and they're some of the nicest people that I've met too. So when I like, it's still hard for me to separate and be like, you you're acting like an asshole, and I understand, but like, this dude went through the same thing and he's not an asshole, so like,
Yeah, yeah.
why?
And to me, it's unfair to the rest of the plane, because those people
Compared
paid
to the
for
rest
it.
of the
Okay,
world.
so yeah, they paid to be there to have like a peaceful time, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're abusing your situation. But yeah, I just be careful, and I've learned so many things being a flight attendant that I still am today using. That's for sure. Yeah, and I think like being on like doing this podcast, and we're about to meet so many people from all walks of life. Which, by the way, because I required them to like tell us what they do so that we can get some kind of perspective, and maybe for pairings and stuff.
Yeah.
They're the place to be on our guest list. Their careers are like, to me, super interesting. Like we could probably talk for hours and hours and have to like comb through to edit the whole thing,
And
but I can't wait to hear, their stories. One of them, which I'm excited about. I think he's the one that I already talked on the phone before, because uh, something was wrong with the shipping, and he's like a correctional officer.
ooh.
I know, so I can't wait to like ask like questions. Um, we had nurses. So
I could
yeah.
see nurses. Nurses deal with a lot.
Yeah.
You
I
need a
am waiting
release.
for somebody from the military, because I've had a lot of orders from military personnel where I have to send to the bases, and I'm just waiting. Hopefully, hey, if you're listening,
I know.
please, we need
Military
military
people,
people on
pop
the
up.
show. You need to like tell us your dark side.
That was so my stepdad was in special forces, and he had some of the darkest bits of humor, and it's special forces. If you're on here, join. They'll be funny. They'll be really funny.
No, I feel like any kind of traumatic event that you've processed over your lifetime and then became like a catalyst of who you are now as a person, is always going to be a very interesting story to tell, because you're gonna come from a very unique perspective that's unique to the situation that you survived in, and that's just super interesting to me, because over the years I've learned, oh, I have a bad childhood, and I have this, depression and anxiety, and you'd think that you would be the worst, in the worst situation, but when you hear other people's stories, you'd be like, oh, I'm such a
Well, and it helps too, especially like people that are going through something similar. Maybe not it might not be the exact same thing, but to see somebody that's overcome it, or maybe they're not fully over it, but they're just comfortable enough to talk about it. I
Mm.
think that's what's wonderful about this whole thing is like people, because obviously, I think you and I have talked about it. A lot of people that are going to be drawn to your game are like messed up millennials. And it's, I don't know if it was ever like this for you growing up, but I remember like my mom had self help books, and my grandma would be like, oh, that's only for people who are like really messed up. So there was like this weird stigma around like therapy and self help. And I remember the first time that I ever thought about ordering a self help book, it was called the Happy Empath. I was
Mm.
just in a lot of my emotions right now. I wasn't able to like regulate them. And from what I saw on the reviews of that book, I was like, I think I want to order it. But I was so scared. Like, I asked my boyfriend, I was like, are you going to think that I'm a psycho because I ordered this? And he's like, no. He's like, if you're trying to
Uh,
better yourself, like, that's good.
yeah.
Like, why would you think that? Like, it's just a weird stigma that was like not brought up from my childhood.